A very warm welcome to all our viewers to this edition of Pep Talk, which is brought to you by ARCA Leadership. ARCA Leadership is a movement to promote authentic leadership. In these series of conversations, we bring you face to face with authentic leaders, that is, people who are genuine, who live their values, and who win people's trust by being who they are. Our guest today is Saurabh Taneja, CEO of the Akanksha Foundation, a non-profit organization with a mission to impact the lives of low-income children, enabling them to maximize their potential and transform their lives. He leads a team of 700 plus faculty and staff, close to 800 volunteers, all serving 27 schools that educate 30,000 children and a network of 4,000 Akanksha alumni across Mumbai and Pune and Nagpur. Previously, Saurabh spent 4 years as a founding school teacher of Acharya Vinoba Bhave Public School, and Acharya Vinoba Bhave School, Akanksha's first standalone secondary school. During the 4 years of his school leadership, he has ensured that all students pass the high stakes Class 10 exam and join the junior college. The school's success has inspired Akanksha, other organizations, and local government authorities to start similar schools models in the city. Before joining the Akanksha Foundation, Saurabh worked with both Shiksha Samiti, UNICEF, and the government of Rajasthan on large-scale school transformation projects and key education policies. Saurabh was also a Teach for India Fellow and a graduate of the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, IIT Delhi. Always a pleasure to share screen with someone who shares the same alma mater as you. Although we are 30 years, we graduated 30 years apart, Saurabh. Saurabh also serves on the board of directors of the Akanksha Foundation. And all this at a young age of 35 years. Incredible. Welcome, Saurabh. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv, and thank you to the ARCA Leadership Platform as well for inviting me.
Most welcome. So, to start the conversation, could you take us through the work being done by Akanksha and the model on which it operates? We're all very curious to understand more about Akanksha.
Happy to, Mr. Rajiv. So, AKANSHA was set up almost 30 years back by our founder, Shaheen Mistry, with a simple vision that all children need to be empowered with key knowledge, key skills, and values to lead an empowered life. And with that vision, Akanksha Foundation has been working in the underserved communities of Mumbai and Pune for almost 15, 17 years, when phase two of Akanksha, which is the formal school model in public-private partnership, came about. And this pivot towards, from an after-school center model all the way towards a formal schooling structure was done with a mission to really demonstrate that public schools, or rather our government schools as they are commonly known, in these cities could actually be hubs of excellence that put children from underserved communities on a very different life trajectory than most of the other public schools were doing. So over the past now 15 years, the Akanksha Foundation has grown from setting up its first school in Pune in public-private partnership. Now we run 27 schools in public-private partnership with 5 municipal corporations, MCGM, which is Mumbai, 1 in Navi Mumbai, 10 in Pune with PMC and Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, and very lately with 6 schools in partnership with Nagpur Municipal Corporation. And our model is such that, we are building on top of the public infrastructure that is already available. However, the key value addition by Akanksha Foundation is what we believe is the software for any school, which is the staff members, the teachers, counselors, social workers, and principals, whom we believe can make or break rather lives of children coming from poorest communities. And in the last 15 years or so, we have graduated nearly 2,000 student alumni. 98% of them have continued their education at least until junior college, which is 12th grade. about 90% of them that have finished their 12th grade graduation. And then about 79% pursue a formal college, undergraduate, or equivalent degree program, which is almost 2x what happens in Maharashtra or nationally for children from poor communities. And, we are very proud to share that many of our students are studying in some of the top colleges in India, as well as in Mumbai and Pune, United World Colleges. We had one student recently make it to IIT Kharagpur. We have a few students who have cleared NEET. They're studying in Ashoka University, 7 of them. So, like our vision is that how do you really put these children on a very different life path and to really help them move upward when it comes to coming out of poverty.
Wow. I can see that this is definitely very, very impactful for the society, Saurav. Uh, the question that comes to my mind is, how can this model be replicated to convert this to a mass movement? What are your thoughts about it?
So I think one of the things that I've learned, Mr. Raji, over the past decade or so, having worked in the development sector, that no one nonprofit or even 1,000 nonprofits together can, achieve the scale that, the government is able to achieve, or is rather aiming to achieve in a country like ours. All what we can do is evolve systems, practices, or policies that can then be embedded in the government education setup to give the outcomes that we all want to see, in our public schools. And with that intent, Akanksha's focus has always been to sort of stay small enough, however, be these hubs of innovation and inspiration that come up with new methodologies, whether it is pedagogical, curriculum, and many other aspects of it, and then share that more widely with the government in which, with whom we partner, especially the state of Maharashtra, or for that matter, with government of India, MHRD, and embed some of these practices and systems in the school model to really see the difference happening. Like you will notice in the new education policy that's been launched lately in 2020, there's a huge emphasis on learning outcomes. There's a huge emphasis on, bringing in social workers and counseling. So all of these elements that Akanksha's schools have been, propagating as a part of its own philosophy over the past 15 years, most of them today have made its way through the new education policy. Now, of course, there's a huge intent to sort of turn it into reality. And our role now is to sort of assist the government in making that also happen while running our own schools. So that's the way, we are looking at scale and replicability of not exactly our model, but our practices, Mr. Raju.
You and how much time do you think will this take, provided there's enough support from the government?
Look, the optimist in me believes that this can be done in a decade. Uh, in this very decade, in 2020s, I would say. However, the reality is that many of these policies in the past have come and gone. And, we haven't really seen a needle moving shift on the outcomes. So my hope is that it can happen in the next 8 to 10 years, provided, like we have a single-minded mission to make it happen. And I think our Honorable Prime Minister has already launched a mission called as Foundational Literacy and Numeracy, which at least will shift the focus towards outcomes, which is the first time that probably seems to be happening in our country. With a 5-year mission, he sort of launched it. So we are seeing some positive momentum towards this already.
Very good. I'm sure this will be very, very beneficial to society in the times to come, especially for our nation. Saurav, you talked about vision just a few minutes back. What is your vision for Akanksha, and how and by when are you planning to reach these milestones?
So I have a decade-long vision, Mr. Rajiv, where we've articulated that Akanksha will build a high-performing and a most innovative network of schools
Mhm.
to empower children to maximize their potential and to influence the ecosystem. So this is our mission, and we've sort of taken a decade-long view on this. And in our, more next 3 to 5 year goals, we want to expand our school model first and foremost to two new cities, up to about 35 to 40 schools, somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
The second goal is to really teach our children the most essential 21st century skills over and beyond academics, right? Like you were speaking so much about authentic leadership. We also focus a lot on social emotional and ethical learning as a part of our curricular practices. So, along with the expansion, we are also a lot focused on the depth and what kind of education and teaching learning methodology do we want to bring in our schools. Uh, and then the third aspect of this is that we want to be able to at least shift learning outcomes in about 500 schools, public schools, government schools, over the next 5 years, right? In strengthening almost 500 government schools in the state of Maharashtra over the next 5 years. So that's our aspiration over the next 5 years, which is more focused on how will we grow our school model, how do we deepen the impact on my children and alumni today in our direct care, and how do we indirectly impact about 500 other government schools to strengthen their learning outcomes as well, based on what we have learned over the last decade or two
Mhm.
at Akanksha School.
Wonderful. That's wonderful, Saurav. Uh, uh, I'm sure all your learnings over the years will come out very useful in your mission in for the years to come. What has been your main learnings in the last few years that you've been serving in the social sector? And what would be your advice to youngsters who are planning to join this sector?
Uh, I mean, it's a tough one. I'll do my best to distill this in three lessons, Mr. Rajiv. I think first and foremost, lesson that I internalized fairly early on in my 2 years of teaching
Mhm.
is just having high expectations of children
Mhm.
as well as adults, no matter where they come from, no matter what their boundaries or limitations or constraints.
Mhm.
And I realized that we as a society have sort of reduced a large, chunk of people in our nation towards just what their socioeconomic profile is.
Mhm.
And, that's a huge loss of demographic dividend, according to me. And just we have seen, or rather, I have seen the power of holding high expectations of people, especially children, no matter where they come from. And they will surprise you in ways that you cannot even believe it.
Mhm.
So, that's my big ask of anyone who comes to the social sector. Don't bring in a charity mindset. Come in believing that, the people that you will work with and work for have a lot of potential, and your responsibility is to unleash that potential.
True.
So that's the first one. I think the second one is that, very often uh, people sort of tend to perceive work in the social sector or development sector as a post job or retirement plan. And, that, okay, I've done my bit here. Now I want to sort of give back and, like, have a life which is less fast paced, not as stressful. I think, we require people who want to give the best years of their professional life to development sector across the country. And with that's the mindset with which I and many of my peers today in the development sector are operating. We're giving our best years, our 20s, 30s, and 40s
Mhm.
in the service, like you said, of the nation or what we believe as our passion and purpose. And that's my second biggest lesson. Even before I joined the fellowship, that's what even I felt. That's what my parents and everyone assumed and believed. Like, this is charitable work. You do this after you've kind of made money and, like, moved ahead. Uh, so that's the second big lesson that I have learned and is my advice to all the youngsters. And the third is really, you will get more than you come to give. And this is just something that I am learning every week in my life. That sometimes in social sector, like you can sit on a moral pedestal very quickly. I am doing something for less privileged. I am giving off something for myself. I think, and one has to sort of keep their ego in check and realize that you get and receive so much more than what you give,
True.
especially from children and people. Once they see and the genuine respect and trust that you are able to earn, it just makes you a purer human being, so to speak, on a day to day basis, if I may. Yeah. So that's what have been three of my biggest lessons.
Coming to slightly on your personal side, when you look back on your journey from the country's premier technological institute to serving in the social sector, what are the thoughts that cross your mind and what keeps you going over here?
I mean, the thoughts that cross my mind is that I wish everyone who went to the premier colleges in India is made to do at least 1 or 2 years of mandatory uh, service, in whatever field they are in. Like if you're engineers, then, like we need to sort of find a way to give back to the society because we're taking a lot from it as well. Uh, and I have never regretted my decision one bit in having made this choice. Yes, it was tumultuous during earlier days in the first 3, 4 years where you didn't really know what you were going to do, how you were going to do it, how will you convince everybody around you. But once you sort of cross that threshold, which for me happened perhaps in 2012 or 2013, since then there's been no looking back on that front. And I really wish that this idea of service, is ingrained in all young adults, youth, everyone, like, from a fairly early age, and especially the ones who graduate out of the premier colleges, with the taxpayers' money, have to find a way to, support and rebuilding the nation as well, because there are a lot of broken things that can be fixed in our country. And I unfortunately don't see that happening enough, right, for Mr. Rajiv. And so, what keeps me going today? Uh, I think the biggest and foremost thing is just being in sync with my purpose and passion. I think like the intersection of that has allowed me to, overcome some of the other materialistic benefits that one sort of tends to devote their life to. And, I've realized that I am at peace with myself, and this is sort of aligned with my set of core values. And I am able to make a difference. And for me, that is important, that I am actually able to see the impact of my work. Right? Like I have that degree of impatience, that I am impatient to see the impact and change. And once I see what my children are achieving, what our schools are able to do for the community and the children, I think that really helps me to keep going on a day-to-day basis.
So, very important words, aligned with your core values and seeing the impact.
Yeah.
During your IIT days, did you ever think of the fact that you'd be joining the social sector one day?
Not at all. Not at all. Uh, yeah, I mean, I was one of those, who didn't even do justice to the NSS or the NSO hours that we had to spend. So at that moment in time, it wasn't even there. It developed during the days of my first job, in fact, just post IIT. Uh, as I was volunteering on the weekends, like we had a lot of time to kill on the weekends.
Mhm.
So, I started volunteering, and that's what really, touched at my heartstrings. And like when you're young, you're still idealistic to make some risky choices in your career. And I tried this out, and I realized this is where I belong. So yeah.
Very nice. So, finally, before we end, one last question that I uh, ask all my guests. So, in leadership plays a very crucial role in a mission of this scale. What has been your preferred style of leadership, and who are the people who have influenced you?
So I can take about five names, Mr. Rajiv, people who have influenced me. Uh, First and foremost, I would say is the founder of Akanksha Foundation and Teach for India. Her name is Shaheen Mistry. I think her story and her tenacity over the last 3 decades has just been supremely inspiring for me. Second one I would say is just my predecessor at Akanksha Foundation, Vandana Goyal. She's also been an incredible leader from what I've noticed, over the past many years. The third one I would say is Dr. V, who's the founder of Arvind Eye Care Hospital. I was deeply moved reading about the journey of Arvind Eye Care and how it became like the world's one of the best eye care systems, and his own journey as a whole. So that's the third one. The fourth one is one of my board members, whose name is Ramesh Srinivasan. He's a senior partner at McKinsey. I think his ability to be able to detach himself from so many things and be an instrument of service is just mind blowing. I've just never seen that, up close and personal. And the fifth one I would say has been, one of my special students. Her name is Ruby, whom I taught between 2013 to 2016. And her perseverance to overcome the odds in her life has just been the biggest teacher for me. And to answer your question about, what's my preferred style of leadership, I like to believe that it is, situational, servant leadership, consultative. So I prefer, like, I am more on these sides where I genuinely believe in leading with the why. And the more and more you communicate the why and the destination to uh, the community that you are working with and working for, then people are creative enough to figure out the solutions to get there. Uh, so I'm a huge believer in that. That doesn't, I'm not ideal. So I do fall short of living by this leadership style often enough. But yeah, that's what I align the most with as my leadership style.
Thank you, Saurabh. I am sure your words will be an inspiration to everyone who's watching this video and especially the younger generation. It's been a pleasure hosting you, and it hasn't been an honor and a privilege for us to have you with us today. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Raji, for having me. Thanks a lot.